The stars outside the passenger ship looked calm and endless. The ship, Silver Wing, floated through the dark space like a small island in an ocean. Inside, the halls were full of quiet talk, the hum of engines, and the smell of recycled air. Traders, diplomats, and travelers from many worlds sat in their cabins or gathered in small groups in the lounge. Everyone believed this trip would be safe. A simple journey between two peaceful planets. Leora, a young alien girl with silver skin and bright green eyes, sat alone near a window. She liked to watch the stars pass by, each one a tiny light in the endless black. Her journey had been boring so far, and she thought it would stay that way. But that peace was about to end. Two crew members walked past her table, speaking in low voices. She didn't mean to listen, but a word caught her attention. Earth, one of them said. Leora's body froze. The other crew member frowned. Keep your voice down. Do you want them to panic? They disappeared into a service hallway, but their words stayed in Leora's mind. Her heart began to beat faster. Earth, the most feared world in the galaxy. She had heard stories since she was a child, stories about humans. Some said humans were monsters in the shape of people. Others said they were clever predators who could trick and defeat even the strongest warriors. Leora tried to tell herself it was just a rumor. The Silver Wing had no reason to go anywhere near Earth. Their destination was the calm trade hub of Varela Station, but a cold feeling settled in her stomach. She looked around the lounge and saw others whispering. The word Earth was moving from mouth to mouth like a shadow spreading through the ship. A short alien with blue feathers sat down beside her. He spoke in a hushed voice. Did you hear? The captain changed course. We're going to Earth. Leora shook her head. Why would we go there? The feathered alien leaned closer. They say the Galactic Council ordered it, but no one knows why. His feathers trembled as he spoke. Leora didn't reply. She just stared at the floor. The hum of the ship's engines felt louder now, like a heartbeat she could not ignore. In the far corner of the lounge, a figure sat alone. He wore a dark travel cloak with the hood pulled low, hiding most of his face. Leora noticed he wasn't talking to anyone. Instead, he was watching the passengers. With slow, careful eyes, when their gazes met for a moment, she quickly looked away. Something about him made her uneasy. Hours passed. The captain's voice finally came over the ship's speakers. Attention passengers, he said, his tone calm but tight. Due to urgent orders from the Galactic Council, our route has been changed. Our new destination is Earth. A wave of noise filled the lounge. Some passengers shouted in protest. Others argued with the crew. A few began making desperate calls to family and friends on distant worlds. Leora sat frozen, her hands cold. The captain continued, "We assure you, all safety measures will be taken. The humans are aware of our arrival and will receive us peacefully." But his voice trembled slightly on the word peacefully. Leora could tell he didn't believe his own words. She thought of the stories again, battles where humans had fought against impossible odds and won. A story about a single human who defeated an entire warship with nothing but planning and patience. If those stories were true, then visiting their world was not safe at all. In her mind, she pictured Earth. Blue oceans, green lands, white clouds. It looked beautiful in the images she had seen in the learning archives. But behind that beauty, she imagined cities full of sharp-eyed humans who could see through every lie. Beings who smiled while planning 3 steps ahead of everyone else. A world where danger hid behind polite words. The feathered alien from earlier returned to her table, his voice even quieter now. "I heard the humans know we're coming. They asked for one passenger by name." Leora frowned. "Who?" "The alien leaned closer. They said." "Leora." Her breath caught in her throat. She looked at him in disbelief. "That's not possible," she whispered. But the way he stared at her told her it was true. Her name, spoken by humans on a world she had never visited. How could they know about her? In the corner, the cloaked man moved for the first time in hours. He stood and walked slowly toward the exit. As he passed her table, he paused for a moment. Without looking at her, he said in a low voice, "You should be ready." Then he kept walking, leaving her with a cold shiver running down her back. The engines of the Silver Wing roared slightly louder as the ship turned toward its new path. Leora pressed her forehead against the glass and stared at the stars. Each one seemed to drift farther away from safety. The word Earth echoed in her mind. And for the first time in her life, she felt truly afraid. The ship's lounge felt different now. It was no longer the casual meeting place where passengers laughed and traded stories. Now it was a room full of nervous voices and shifting eyes. Everyone seemed to be speaking about the same subject, Earth. The name moved through the air like a cold wind, touching every corner of the ship. Leora sat in the same seat near the window, but she wasn't looking outside anymore. Her gaze moved from one group to another, listening to pieces of conversation. A tall, insect-like traveler clicked his mandibles as he spoke to two younger passengers. "They say humans once fought the Karth Empire. The Karth had ships 10 times bigger, but they still lost." The younger ones leaned in, eyes wide. "Lost?" One asked, "How?" The insect leaned back, his voice dropping. "Humans. They don't give up. They fight even when they should lose. They find a way, any way." At another table, an old scaled merchant told his own story. "I was at the trade summit on Virlin Prime when humans first arrived. No one thought much of them, until they started talking." He tapped the table with a claw. "They talked like they could see into the future. Every deal they made seemed small at first, but later, it was always a trap for the other side." He shook his head slowly. "You can't win against someone who plans while smiling." The words sank into Leora's mind like drops of cold water. She remembered her tutor's warnings from years ago. "Humans are unpredictable," he had said. "They can be kind, but they can also be dangerous. The problem is, you can never tell which one you're dealing with." The feathered alien who had spoken to her earlier returned again. He held a small drink in his hands, his feathers slightly ruffled. "They're telling stories over there," he said, pointing to a group in the corner. "About human wars, human spies, human strange habits." Leora raised an eyebrow. "Strange habits?" He nodded. "One story says humans keep animals just for friendship, not for food, not for work. Just for company." Leora blinked. "That's not dangerous." The feathered alien leaned closer, his voice low. "Maybe not, but it means they can form strong bonds for no reason at all. Imagine what they do when they have a reason." In the far corner, the cloaked passenger from earlier was still silent. He sat with his hands on the table, a small human-made object resting between them. It was round, metallic, and glowing faintly. From within, Leora found herself staring at it. It didn't look like a weapon, but something about it felt heavy with meaning. The man noticed her gaze, then slowly covered the object with his hand. He didn't speak, but his slight nod felt like a message she couldn't understand yet. The ship's lights dimmed slightly as the artificial day cycle shifted. Passengers moved to their cabins, but in the lounge, a few storytellers stayed behind. One voice rose above the others, deep, steady, and commanding. It belonged to a retired soldier from the Zareth Guard. He spoke without fear, but with respect. "I fought beside humans once," he said. "We were outnumbered 3 to 1. They didn't panic. They didn't run. They just looked at each other, nodded, and charged forward." The soldier's eyes darkened. "We won that day. But I realized something. Humans don't fight to survive. They fight to win. And there's a difference." The listeners sat in silence for a moment, letting his words settle. Leora's stomach tightened. She had never met a human, yet they were already shaping her thoughts. She didn't know if she should fear them or be curious about them. Suddenly, the ship's comm system beeped. A voice came through. Not the captain's, but an unfamiliar one. It was calm, smooth, and carried an accent she had never heard before. "Silver Wing, we welcome you to the path toward Earth. Your arrival is expected." Every passenger froze. The voice continued. One passenger will be met upon arrival, Liara of Fallon Prime. Liara's heart skipped a beat. The voice had said her name again. She felt dozens of eyes turned toward her, some curious, some suspicious. She wanted to disappear into the seat. The transmission ended. But the echo of her name stayed in the air. Passengers whispered, some moving away from her, others leaning closer as if she were suddenly important. The feathered alien looked at her with both worry and fascination. "Why do they know you?" he asked. Liara shook her head slowly. I don't know." But deep inside, she felt the strange pull of truth. Maybe she did know, and had simply never wanted to admit it. From across the room, the cloaked man rose again. He picked up the small glowing object and slipped it into his cloak. For the first time, he walked toward her, his steps slow and certain. When he reached her table, he leaned down just enough for only her to hear. "They have been waiting for you," he said, his voice low but certain, "for a very long time." Then without another word, he walked away. Liara sat still, her mind full of questions. But one thought was louder than all the rest. What would the humans want with her? The next ship cycle began with a heavy silence. Passengers moved through the corridors like shadows. Even the usual hum of the engines seemed slower, deeper. No one laughed. No one played music. The word Earth had drained all the warmth from the silver wing. Liara stayed in her cabin for a while, sitting on the edge of her bunk. She kept replaying the voice from the transmission in her mind. It had sounded calm, almost friendly, but every syllable felt sharp. Her name, spoken by a human she had never met. Why would they want her, and why now? A soft chime at her door broke her thoughts. When it slid open, the feathered alien was standing there. He looked nervous, his feathers shifting slightly. "You should come to the lounge," he whispered. "The captain is making an announcement." Liara followed him through the narrow hallways. Every step felt heavier, as if the ship itself knew something was wrong. When they reached the lounge, most passengers were already gathered. The captain stood near the front, his posture straight, but his face tight. Beside him stood 2 security officers and a thin alien in formal Galactic Council robes. The murmurs stopped when the captain raised his hand. "I will explain everything," he began. "Our change of course is not random. It is an official mission." A wave of whispers moved through the crowd. The captain continued. 2 days ago, the Galactic Council received a message from Earth. It was not a request. It was a demand. They required a representative to travel immediately, and they insisted that our vessel be the one to bring them a specific passenger. His eyes scanned the room. Liara felt her chest tighten as his gaze landed on her. "That passenger," he said, "is Liara of Fallon Prime." The crowd reacted instantly. Some passengers looked at her with pity, others with suspicion. A few backed away, as if being near her might somehow draw human attention to them. Liara's mind spun. She had done nothing to attract the humans' interest. At least nothing she could remember. The council representative stepped forward. He was calm, but there was a strange edge in his voice. "The humans are not to be taken lightly. They are one of the few species that the council does not command, but negotiates with." He looked directly at her. "You are important to them," he said, "and that makes you important to us." Liara wanted to ask 1,000 questions. Instead, she managed only one. "What do they want from me?" The representative hesitated. "That," he said slowly, "is unclear. Their message gave no reason, only your name." The feathered alien beside her shifted nervously. Why would the council agree to this? Someone in the crowd demanded. The captain answered without hesitation. "Because when humans send a message, they are already prepared for every answer you might give. Saying no is never an option they leave open." His words hung in the air. Like a cold mist, Liara's mind flashed with the stories she had heard. Humans outthinking entire governments. Humans turning enemies into allies. Humans making impossible victories look planned from the start. If all of that was true, then this was not a coincidence. They had wanted her specifically, and that meant they already knew something about her that even she didn't know. In the back of the lounge, the cloaked passenger leaned against the wall. He was watching her again, the faint glow of that strange object now hidden inside his cloak. Their eyes met for a brief moment. This time, he didn't look away. Instead, he gave the smallest of nods, as if confirming something to himself. The captain ended the meeting with final instructions. We will arrive at Earth in 3 ship days. Security protocols will be in place. Passengers are advised to remain calm. But the calm he spoke of never reached the crowd. Instead, people left the lounge whispering even more than before. Leora stayed seated long after most had gone. The feathered alien looked at her carefully. "You're not telling me everything," he said softly. Leora shook her head. "Because I don't know everything." She paused, then added, "But I think my family might have." It was a thought she had never spoken aloud. Her parents had died when she was young, leaving behind only a locked chest she had never been able to open. For years she had wondered if the chest held something dangerous. Now, with the humans calling her name, the memory of that chest felt heavier than ever. From the doorway, the cloaked man finally stepped forward. When he reached her table, he lowered his voice. "They're not coming for who you are," he said. "They're coming for what you carry." Leora stared at him, confused. "I'm not carrying anything," she said. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Not yet." Then he turned and walked away, again, leaving her with more questions than answers. The engines hummed beneath her feet. The silver wing was locked on its new path, and for the first time, Leora began to wonder, not if she would survive Earth, but if she would survive what the humans already knew. The silver wing drifted through the blackness of space. Its engines purred softly, a steady sound beneath the growing tension on board. Passengers moved in hushed voices, glancing at Leora as if she were a puzzle they could not solve. Even the crew avoided speaking too loudly. It was as if the ship itself was holding its breath. Leora stayed close to the lounge that day. The feathered alien, whose name she had finally learned was Rethan, kept near her. He seemed torn between curiosity and fear. 3 days until Earth," he muttered. "And they've already made you the center of the ship." Leora tried to ignore the stares, but each glance felt like a weight pressing against her back. The cloaked passenger appeared again. He didn't sit, didn't speak, just stood in a shadowed corner, watching. Leora felt a strange mix of annoyance and unease. It was as if he were waiting for something, or for someone. Halfway through the artificial day cycle, the ship's comm system crackled to life. The captain's voice started to speak, but it was cut off by a sharper, clearer signal. A new voice filled the air. It was human, smooth, controlled, every word measured. "This is Earth Central Diplomatic Relay to Silver Wing," the voice said. "Your arrival is anticipated. You are entering pre-clearance range." The lounge fell silent. Even the hum of the engine seemed quieter. The voice continued. "All passengers are to remain aboard upon docking, except Leora of Fallon Prime." Leora's breath caught. Hearing her name spoken again in that calm human tone sent a chill through her. It was not a question. It was a statement, an order wrapped in politeness. "We will meet you at the orbital terminal," the human voice went on. "You will be escorted to secure ground transport. Our representative will explain the rest when you arrive." The message ended with a soft click. The captain's voice returned quickly, tight and uneasy. "Passengers, please remain calm." The message was received and acknowledged. "We will comply with protocol." But no one was calm. The room erupted. In whispers, some passengers stared at Leora with suspicion, others with open fear. Rethan leaned closer, speaking under his breath. "They don't sound angry. They don't sound kind either. They sound like they already own you." Leora wanted to deny it, but she couldn't. The human's words had a strange weight. It wasn't just the way they spoke. It was the way they left no room for argument. It was as if her being taken was already a fact, decided long before this trip had even begun. In the corner, the cloaked man moved at last. He walked toward her table and stopped beside her chair. "You hear it now," he said quietly. "They don't ask, they tell." Leora looked up at him. "Why me? What do they think I have?" He didn't answer directly. Instead, he placed a small, smooth object on the table. It was round, metallic, and pulsed with faint blue light. She recognized it instantly. The same thing he had been holding before. "This," he said, "was made by humans. It opens only for one person, and that person is you." Her heart raced. She didn't touch it. Instead, she whispered, "I've never seen it before." The man's expression didn't change. "You've never opened it before," he corrected. "But it's been yours longer than you know." Rethan leaned in, his feathers ruffling in alarm. "What's inside it?" he asked. The cloaked man shook his head. "Not something I would trust to open here," he replied. "Some truths are better kept until you're standing in front of the people who want them." Before Leora could speak, "The ships comes." Crackled again. A second human voice came through, this one lower, colder. "Leora," it said, "do not lose that object. Do not give it to anyone else. We will take it from you ourselves when you arrive." The transmission ended instantly. No introduction, no farewell, only certainty. The lounge was completely still. Every eye was on her and the glowing object on the table. Her hands trembled slightly as she pushed it back toward the cloaked man. "Keep it," she said. "I don't want it." He shook his head and stepped back. "It's not about what you want," he said. "It's about what you were born into." Leora stared at the object for a long moment. Her mind was a storm of questions, questions with no safe answers. And in that silence, she realized something that made her skin crawl. The humans had not just been waiting for her, they had been preparing for her. The silver wing glided toward its final approach. The last day of travel had been the quietest yet. Passengers stayed in their cabins, avoiding the lounge, avoiding her. Leora could feel their fear pressing on her from behind every closed door. It wasn't just fear of humans. It was fear of being anywhere near her when the humans came. The captain's voice broke the silence. "Passengers, we are entering the Sol system," he announced. "Prepare for orbital visuals." Leora's heart thudded against her ribs. She had seen images of Earth and learning archives before, but seeing it in a picture and seeing it with her own eyes would not be the same. Rethan joined her at the viewing deck. He said nothing, just folded his feathered arms and stared ahead. The cloaked man stood farther back in the shadows, as always, watching, silent. Leora wasn't sure if he was her enemy, her protector, or both. The darkness ahead shifted. A small pale sphere appeared, growing larger with every passing second. At first, it was just white and blue. Then the green began to show. Oceans shimmered like liquid glass. Clouds curled and stretched across the planet in slow swirls. From this distance, it looked calm, almost gentle. Leora almost forgot the fear in her stomach. But then she saw movement, glints of metal in orbit. Dozens of human satellites and defense platforms encircled the world like silent guardians. They didn't fire, they didn't threaten, but their presence was enough to send a message. "We see you. We are ready." The ship passed through the outer network without incident. No alarms, no scans that she could hear. But she knew they were being scanned anyway. Scanned in ways the ship's systems couldn't even detect. Humans didn't need to announce what they knew. They simply knew. As they drew closer, the blue of the oceans deepened. The continents took shape. Mountains, forests, rivers like silver threads. Cities appeared as clusters of light. Even on the day side, on the night side, the planet glowed with webs of golden illumination. It was beautiful, but not the peaceful beauty of nature alone. It was the beauty of a civilization that had claimed every corner of its home and was not afraid to defend it. Rethan's feathers twitched nervously. "They're watching us right now," he murmured. "Not just the ship." "U.S.U." Leora didn't answer. She could feel it too, an invisible gaze. Sharp and unblinking, it felt as if the planet itself had eyes. The cum system clicked on. The same human voice from before spoke. "Silver Wing, you are cleared." For docking at Earth Orbital Terminal 1, Leora of Fallon Prime. Prepare for immediate transfer upon arrival. No welcome, no ceremony, just the plain facts. The voice cut off. The captain gave orders to the crew, but his tone was tighter than before. As the Silver Wing began its descent toward the massive orbital station, Leora pressed her hand against the glass. The station was vast, a ring of metal and light circling high above the planet. Ships of every shape and size docked at its outer edges. But she noticed something. The docking bay assigned to them was empty. It wasn't by accident. The humans had cleared it for them alone. The moment they entered the bay, armed human guards were visible along the platform. They didn't move aggressively, but their stance said they could be dangerous in a heartbeat. Their armor was sleek, dark, and without obvious weapons, which somehow made them seem even more dangerous. Humans didn't always need to show their weapons. Sometimes they were the weapon. Rethan gave her a sideways glance. You still want to believe the stories are only stories? Leora didn't answer. She wasn't sure anymore. The docking clamps locked into place with a deep metallic thud. The airlock cycled, hissing softly. Leora felt her hands tremble. In moments, she would be standing face to face with the beings she had feared all her life, and they already knew her name, her face, maybe even her thoughts. The cloaked man stepped closer, his voice low. They will take you from here. You must listen to everything they say, but don't give them everything they want. Leora turned to him sharply. Why? What happens if I do? He hesitated, then said, if you give them what they want too easily, they will wonder why. And then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd as the airlock opened. The first human stepped inside. Tall, steady, eyes sharp but calm. His uniform bore no weapons, no rank insignia. Yet when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of command. Leora, he said, you're coming with us. The moment Leora stepped through the airlock, the air felt different. It was cleaner than the recycled ship air, but heavier somehow. She could smell metal and something faintly sharp, like a storm that hadn't broken yet. The human guards moved around her in a loose circle, not touching her, but close enough to block any escape. Their faces were unreadable, calm but not cold. It was the kind of calm that came from knowing they were in complete control. The lead human, the one who had spoken her name, walked ahead without looking back. Leora followed, her steps slow. Rethan tried to come with her, but one of the guards stepped in his way. She goes alone, the guard said simply, and Rethan didn't argue. The cloaked man was nowhere to be seen. She wasn't sure if that made her feel safer or more exposed. The corridor led them deeper into the orbital terminal. Its walls were smooth and white, lined with strips of soft light. Everything looked simple, yet she could feel the hidden strength in the design. No visible weapons, no visible defenses. But she knew, if something happened here, the humans would respond faster than she could blink. They stopped at a wide door. It slid open to reveal a large, quiet room. A long table sat in the center, and at the far end was a single human. He was older than the guards. His hair streaked with gray, but his eyes were sharp, as if they could see through every word she might say. Leora, he greeted, his voice steady. Welcome to Earth. She hesitated, unsure if she should thank him. He gestured for her to sit. When she did, two guards took positions at the walls. The older human placed a small device on the table. It was the same glowing object the cloaked man had carried. Leora's heart jumped. How? She began. We retrieved it, he said simply. It belongs to you. She shook her head. I've never seen it until this trip. The man leaned forward slightly. You've never opened it, he corrected. That is different, Leora frowned. Why is it so important? He held her gaze. Because it carries something that can only be unlocked by your genetic signature. It has been waiting for you for a very long time. Her hands tightened in her lap. My genetic signature? She asked. The man nodded. Your family, Leora, was part of something the galaxy has almost forgotten. But we have not. Humans do not forget debts. And we do not forget promises. She felt her chest tighten. My family was nothing special, she said quietly. The man's eyes narrowed just slightly. That's what you were told. But your ancestor, your great-grandmother, saved a human leader's life. Not in a battle, not in a treaty, in a way far more personal. Leora didn't know what to say. Her mind raced. Was this some kind of manipulation, or was it real? The man continued. The object contains the details of that event. And a key. The key is not metal or code. It is knowledge. Knowledge that was meant to pass to you when you were ready. She shook her head. I'm not ready, she whispered. The man's expression didn't change. Ready or not, the moment has come. For a moment, silence filled the room. She could hear her own breathing. The glowing object pulsed faintly, as if it could hear too. Finally, she asked, why now? Why didn't you come for me years ago? The man's reply was simple. Because now, the galaxy is shifting, and soon, we will need you to choose a side. The words sank into her like cold water. Choose a side, as if it was already certain. She would be in the middle of something far larger than herself. Her pulse quickened. What if I don't choose? She asked. The man's lips curved into the smallest of smiles. Then the choice will be made for you, and you may not like who makes it. One of the guards stepped forward, placing the object gently in front of her. It was warm to the touch. The light inside it grew brighter when her fingers brushed against the surface. She could feel it responding to her, alive in some strange way. A soft hum filled the room, and for a moment, the human guards shifted slightly, as if they too felt its power. The man's voice was calm. When you are ready, open it. When you do, the path ahead will change forever. Leora pulled her hand back. She wasn't sure if she was afraid of what was inside, or afraid of what would happen after. The glowing object sat on the table between them. Its light pulsed slowly, as if it were breathing. Leora stared at it. Her reflection curved in its metallic surface. She felt as if it were staring back at her. Waiting, the older human leaned back in his chair. You feel it, don't you? He asked softly. She didn't answer. He continued. It's calling to you. It has been for years. You just didn't know how to hear it. Her hands trembled slightly. Every instinct told her to push it away, to leave it unopened, but another part of her, small but growing, wanted to know, wanted the truth, even if it scared her. One of the guards stepped closer. Time is short, he said. We have incoming communications from the council. They want to know if the package has been opened. The older man gave a slight shake of his head. They will wait. This is not their decision. Leora looked between them. You're all acting like this thing is alive, she said quietly. The man's eyes didn't leave hers. In a way, it is. It carries more than information. It carries intent. Her voice was tight. And what happens if I open it? The man replied without hesitation. Then you will know the truth about your family, about why humans have been waiting for you, and you will also know what is coming. She glanced toward the door, half expecting Rethan to come bursting in with some warning, but there was no sign of him. The cloaked man was also gone, as if he had vanished into the walls. She was alone with the humans now. The hum from the object grew faintly louder. It was subtle, but it made her chest feel tight. She thought about her parents, about the locked chest they had left behind. What if this was connected? What if opening this object was the same as opening that chest, the one she had been too afraid to touch? Her fingers twitched. She reached out, then stopped. I don't trust you, she said. The man nodded slightly. You don't have to trust the truth inside it instead. For a moment, no one moved. The light from the object washed across her hands. She took a deep breath. What if I decide not to open it? She asked. The man's answer was calm, but his eyes were sharp. Then we will keep you here. We will protect you. But the galaxy outside will keep moving towards something dangerous. And when it arrives, you will face it blind. The word blind sent a shiver through her. She imagined being caught in a storm without knowing which way to run. Her fear was no longer just of humans. It was of not knowing. Her hand moved again. This time she touched the surface fully. The object's glow surged. The hum became a deep vibration she could feel through the table. The guards tensed, their eyes locked on her. The man leaned forward, his voice low. "Once you open it, there is no going back." Leora swallowed hard. "Maybe I don't want to go back," she said, almost to herself. The top of the object shifted with a soft click. A thin line of white light appeared around its edge. The room's air seemed to grow warmer. For a moment, she felt dizzy, as if the world itself had leaned closer to watch. Then, she stopped. Her hands froze on the object. Her eyes lifted to the man across the table. "If I open this, will it help me, or will it help you?" The man didn't blink. "It will help the one who uses it wisely." Her breath caught. Slowly, she pulled her hands back. The object's light dimmed again. The hum faded. She stood up. "Then I'll open it when I decide, not when you tell." "And me too." The man didn't move, but there was the faintest curve to his lips. "As I said, we have been waiting for you," he murmured. The guards stepped aside, letting her walk to the door. She glanced back once. The object still on the table, pulsing faintly, as if it knew the choice had only been delayed. And as the door closed behind her, Leora realized something that made her heart race. The choice wasn't between opening it or not. The choice was when, and who would still be alive when she finally did.